All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are going to totally demystify one of the biggest projects in the entire IB program, the Environmental Systems and Society's Internal Assessment, or as you know it, the ESS IA.
So let's be real for a second. Is this thing kind of freaking you out? If it is, you are definitely not alone. It's a serious piece of academic work, and it's designed to be a challenge.
And yeah, that feeling makes a ton of sense when you see this number, 25% of your final grade. But you know what? Let's flip that around. That's a huge opportunity to really show what you know and give your final score a major boost. So our mission today is to turn all that stress into straight-up confidence. Here's the game plan. We're going to cover what the ESS IAyı even is, break down the anatomy of a great report, look at the scoring secrets, then we'll get into a step-by-step action plan, some awesome research ideas, and finish up with the golden rules for success. All right, let's dive right in. First things first, what exactly is the ESS IAyı? Okay, so at its heart, this is your shot to be a real independent researcher. And here's the cool part. You're not just doing some lab experiment. You're digging into a real environmental issue from two angles, the hard science and the human side of things. You know, the economics, the politics, the ethics. That connection, that's what makes the ESS IA so unique. Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's look at the blueprint. How do you actually build this thing into a finished report? See, a great IA isn't just a random pile of facts. It tells the story of your investigation in a very specific, logical way. I want you to think of it like a journey. You start with a super focused research question. That's your destination. Then you explain your plan in the methodology. That's your map. Then you show what you found with your data and analysis. The discussion is where you connect it all to the bigger picture, and the evaluation is where you step back and critique your own journey before you wrap it all up in the conclusion. See? It's a story. Okay, this part is huge. How is all this work actually graded? Seriously, understanding the scoring criteria is like getting the answers to the test before you even start. So your whole IA is scored out of 30 points. But here's the real secret. It's spread out evenly across 5 different criteria. This means your planning and how you communicate your ideas are worth just as much as your raw data. You could have perfect data, but if your discussion is weak, your score is going to suffer. The name of the game here is balance. Balance across every single section. Okay, so knowing the structure is great, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. Having a solid process, that's a whole other thing. So let's walk through the action plan that's going to take you from a scary blank page to a finished report you're proud of. This is your roadmap to getting it done without pulling your hair out. First, you've got to narrow down your topic to a really specific, measurable question. Then you do your homework, your background research, and plan out your method. Only then do you start collecting and analyzing your data. The last steps, that's all about figuring out what your results mean, looking back at your own process, and then, and this is super important, giving yourself plenty of time to actually write and revise the report. If you follow these steps in order, you're going to stay on track. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, that very first step, choosing a topic. It can feel like you need some kind of lightning bolt of genius to strike, right? But honestly, the best ideas are usually hiding right in your own backyard. Let's look at a few examples to get your brain going. So, one fantastic approach is to check out a local environmental issue. I mean, you could literally go take water samples from a nearby stream or a lake and test them for things like nitrates or phosphates. It's hands-on, it's manageable, and it's directly connected to your own community. Or maybe you're more interested in how human activity is changing the local ecosystem. You could, say, compare the number and variety of plants you find in a local park versus a super developed urban area right next to it. This lets you tackle a huge theme like habitat loss, but on a scale you can actually see and measure for yourself. Here's another great angle. Focus on solutions. You don't just have to measure problems. You can actually test ways to fix them. For instance, you could run a little experiment right at your school to see if putting up new signs or starting a competition could get more people to recycle. It's practical, it's positive, and it's solution-oriented. So what's the common thread here? What connects all these ideas? It's all about focus. A huge topic like water pollution it's impossible to cover. But a super specific question like, how do nitrate levels in the Mill River change upstream versus downstream from that new housing development? Now that is something you can actually investigate and find an answer to. Okay, we're almost there. Let's pull all this together into a few golden rules. Think of this as your final checklist for making sure you produce a really high-quality IA.
if you want to do well, you've got to adopt these habits. Focus on local issues so you can get real, tangible data. Plan your time so you're not in a panic at the last minute. Always prioritize ethics and safety. Write down every single source you use. And maybe most importantly, use your supervisor as a guide. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback and then actually use it.
So when it's all said and done, success really does boil down to these 4 pillars. But, this project is so much more than just a grade. It's your chance to become a genuine expert on one tiny piece of our planet. So maybe the real final question isn't just how do I get a good score, but instead, what environmental story in my own community is just waiting for me to tell it? Find that story, and I promise you won't just write a great IA, you'll create something you are truly deeply proud of.